Look at that. We have an intro.
Bada boy, you know
And
what I'm saying?
I messed it up for the first time. But I will get our intro right. Let me try to do this right. Hey guys, I am Raymond and I'm joined. No, I fucked it up already. 4 seconds in.
He's Raymond.
And this is Marcus, my excellent friend and co-host. Okay.
And this is the beer pad.
This is the beer pad. Thank you for joining us. We have a great episode for you today. We're going to be talking about a bunch of things. First, we're going to be talking about some games we're playing. Marcus, what do you got going on? What are you playing?
I am playing that there God of War Ragnarok.
Aha. And I am playing Tactics Ogre Reborn. We also have a bunch of
I am playing TikTok Tactics Dancing Ogre Unicorn.
It is a fine game, and perhaps something was lost in translation from Japanese. I'll go with that. We had the World Cup started this week, and our teams played against each other. We'll be talking about that a little bit, and we have a special bit at the end. Hopefully, we'll be able to fit everything in, doing a flashback of the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Ooh.
Yes.
Ooh, it's a blast, says the Washington Post.
Uh-oh. Did Tom Ham write that? Wasn't he there at the time?
I have no idea.
That's a very young John Leguizamo and a legendary Bob Hoskins.
Yes, indeed.
In that movie. But,
all right, so I'm going to let you go first with your Ogre Tic Tacs.
Yes.
Because you have to explain to me what Ogre Tic Tacs is. I know it's it's probably something by Square Enix.
There you go.
And I'm guessing it's some sort of JRPG of some sort, possibly turn-based. I'm guessing it's either on the Switch or... no, shit, I can't even imagine it being on anything beyond the Switch. How close am I?
4 out of 5. You got 4 out of 5. That was really excellent. The last one, it is on the Switch, but I'm playing on PS5. So it's PS4, PS5, Switch. I don't know if it's on Xbox. I'm not positive. But I'm playing Tactics Ogre Reborn, which is an updated version of a game that was originally on the Super Nintendo in, I think, 1995. It was remade later for the PSP, which was more of a graphical update. Some of the things in that remake weren't the best. And now it's gotten another overhaul in 2022. It is a tactical RPG, turn-based. It takes place on an isometric grid. Everyone walks in little squares at a time. But it is one of the earliest games from my favorite game designer ever, Yasumi Matsuno. A lot of people know him from Final Fantasy Tactics and the Ogre Battle series. And he's made my favorite game ever and some of my top 20 favorite games ever. Wonderful designer. The music also some of my favorite by Mr. Sakamoto, Mr. Iwata. They also worked on the Final Fantasy Tactics series, but this game takes place. They made this game before Final Fantasy Tactics, but it's the same style where you have an isometric map, turn-based combat, and it uses a job system, which big fan of job systems. You get to customize your characters, play how you want. You can make a tank, you can make a DPS ninja, you can make a magic user, whatever you want your characters to be.
Can you give them a paper route?
You cannot give them a paper route.
What's the point of giving them a job then? I mean, this is the problem with kids today. They don't want to work.
Well, maybe
they want their avocado sandwiches handed to them on a plate.
Because they don't have these kind of jobs. A kid can't be a wizard today. I would love to be a wizard. Absolutely.
Well, nobody can be a wizard nowadays because it's a fictional freaking character.
I saw Ian McKellen be a wizard.
You shall not pass.
Yes, Sir Ian, you shall not pass. Sir Ian, yeah.
I think I could do the Ian McKellen slightly better than you because one, I have the beard.
Okay.
Two, I can do the British gruff accent, You, however, can be my little Frodo and play with my ring.
Do you have a staff? Let's see. What do we got around here to work with? Oh, we're going that way now. Well,
How about that?
that's so funny that we both went for our lightsabers. That was
Yeah,
totally unplanned.
One of two. My other one's broken. My purple one is broken, so I'm gonna have to send it to the saber shop.
Oh, you have an official one? Oh man.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
the
I bought
totally
it
nice
the saber the saber factory thing at Disneyland last year, actually.
Oh, man, those
So
are
it's just stopped working. It's a purple one,
nice.
big purple saber. But please carry on. Carry on with your ogres and ogres. I hate ogres.
So they did update a lot of things. Some of the things that were totally acceptable in the 90s won't fly with today's gamers, like random battles. So before, when you used to walk around on the map, every now and then you would get a battle. And sometimes it would be annoying because you're not in the mood for a random battle. And some of these battles can take, anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes, depending on how you like to play. Like, I'm one of those guys, I will think about like one move for like 3 minutes, take it back, and then finally do something 2 minutes later. So some of my battles can take a really long time. But they got rid of the random battles. You can now do practice battles at designated cities. So you can grind as much as you want, whenever you want, instead of these random battles that happen all the time. Some of the jobs are rebalanced. So that's been throwing me off. There were some jobs that I used to lean on that aren't as effective anymore. I'm discovering that archers, used to be able to cheap shot and snipe everyone for the whole game. But I've learned that after the first chapter, archers aren't quite as powerful. So now I have to rethink my whole strategy. So for this kind of game, I'm probably getting, at least for my first playthrough, at least 50 hours, maybe 45 hours. And I will go back and play, get all the optional characters, see what the optional paths are. Because you could play as good or evil, or they call it law and chaos in this game, but it's good and evil. I always play the good path the first time around. So hopefully when all is said and done, this game will give me maybe 75, 80 hours of entertainment, which I think is a fantastic value.
That's pretty good. I mean, it's a full price release, I'm guessing, yeah?
50. So I think it was normal 60 now or 70.
I think 60 or 70 is the normal, depending on the game. But I mean, 50 is still a chunk of change for what is a remaster, an up-res. Obviously you've got some new game mechanics in there, but do you think it justifies that $50? I mean, you're obviously a big fan and somebody who has already, is going to get 50 odd hours out of it, which equates to $1 an hour. And then you play as chaos, and then you'll get another 50 hours out of it, which makes it, down to 50 cents an hour, which is that's value for money. But I mean, if somebody, is it value for money for somebody who is only perhaps a casual tactics fan, whether it be Final Fantasy Tactics or Ogre Tactics? Ogres,
I would say so, because there's not really another way to play it. I mean, I suppose if you still have a PSP, you can find that version.
Okay.
Really inexpensively.
It's not on PS Now or whatever they're running right now.
No, and it's not. This is the first time it's available. It is on PC now, so that's a new way to play it. I did forget about that. So yeah, I mean, if it was on PC for a long time, then obviously that would affect the overall relative value of the game. But yeah, now it's available on more platforms than ever before. I think it's a fantastic game. I love the job system, love the music, love the gameplay style. Definitely not for everyone. I mean, it's a subgenre of Japanese RPGs, so it's a very,
that is a niche genre right there. I don't think it'd be right up my particular alley.
No, absolutely not. And this is the least Marcus game I can play, pretty much. But I highly recommend it if you like strategy RPGs, if you like turn-based combat, if you like job systems, and it's
nothing about those that appeal to me.
Yeah, totally see that. But
Sorry.
it's also a great glimpse into Mr. Matsuno's games. As I said, he's my favorite game designer ever. Made some really wonderful games in this series and the Final Fantasy Tactics series. He eventually got moved to the big franchise, and they gave him Final Fantasy 12, which took a toll on him mentally and physically, and he was not able to finish the game. So that game kind of ruined him on several levels. He's still making games, but not as big as before. And, the man sacrificed his health for my entertainment and the entertainment of millions. So
yeah, the fan base for these sort of games is so hardcore and demanding. I mean, you're on a real hiding to nothing, because not only do you have the fans, but you have the corporate pressure as well. And, Japanese corporate pressure, structure, and that can be quite a restrictive structure in general. And I am sure that the poor guy worked his ass off. But as long as he's okay now. Is he okay now?
He is better. I don't think he has it in him to do a Final Fantasy 12 or something like that again, because it just, it took a lot out of him, and some of that is just he's never getting back.
Ugh, that's sad.
It is sad, but he's alive and well enough for now.
Well, I mean, he's not totally screwed up. Just 80%.
So I want to hear about Ragnarok. I have not played a God of War game since God of War 3, so I think that was like 2010 or something. So I'm way behind.
Well, here's the interesting thing. I've never played a God of War game.
Oh, wow. So this is brand new for you.
Brand new for me. Totally brand new. Never had any interest. I watch people playing them. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's swing a chain around and some axes. And so let's get the pros out of the way first. I mean, God of War Ragnarok is a beautiful game. Really is quite wonderful, with some of the some great story in there. You have Kratos and you have Atreus as his son, and this basically the game starts off. You can actually have a recap of the last one, which is handy if you're coming into it ass backwards, like what I'm doing.
Right.
And so I watched it. Didn't understand a bloody word of it. It's got a nice little tutorial system.
Wait, did the recap interest you though, or did it make sense?
Yes. Look, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, it's nice to see a different take on the Norse gods, in particular Thor and Odin, after they've been Marvelified. And it really does show them up to be a right couple of wankers. I mean, nobody comes out of this game, and I'm still playing my way through it, because I'm splitting time between that and Football Manager, because Football Manager 23 just dropped. So
that's right.
You'd be delighted to know that Darwin Nunez is actually brilliant. He's got 16 goals already this season, and I've just come back from the World Cup break. England win the World Cup in this. How bizarre is that?
He's putting up numbers, you mean?
Huh?
He's putting up Holland numbers?
But no, I can't say that, because Haaland's not putting up those numbers. I've beaten Manchester City 2 out of 3 games this season. Community Shield, just beaten them 2-1 in the league. Haaland didn't score; he got subbed off. And the only defeat was Carabao Cup at the Etihad. It went to penalties. And I think Haaland's actually scored once in 3 games. He's got like 13 goals for the season in the league, and Nunez has got 16 in 12 games. So really bizarre. If only it were like real life.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to God of War.
Yes.
Yeah, is it beautiful? Absolutely. It really shows off the power of the PS5. Some of the voice acting is absolutely superb. The story is really interesting. There is, I have a particular bugbear with voice acting, that when you are playing these legendary characters, giving them American accents doesn't vibe with me. And it's just, I mean, it's, you know, having been somebody who's raised on like plays from the BBC with Sir Ian McKellen and, you know, Laurence Olivier and all this sort of stuff, when you hear these sort of you see these characters like Odin, etc., etc. I mean, you think Anthony Hopkins as Odin. There are a couple of voice actors. I mean, they all really give great performances. Just that the accents feel a little off.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I mean, the game offers you a bunch of different options. You can go more combat driven, more story driven, more balanced, which is fun for, you know, different people. It's obviously got the great, and I'm loving, and this is one of the big positives for me that you see in the gaming industry now, is the accessibility options that you have for players with who are differently abled.
Yeah.
And so it's got all those, you know, all those bells and whistles, and it's fun upgrading the weapons, you know, looting, solving some problems. The levels look great, but it is very smoke and mirrors. These vast, you're in this vast, you know, quarry expanse, and you're just doubling back. And it's just, you know, it's all, oh, this is all walled off. You can't go here because the other side, if no clip was turned on, for example, there'd be nothing there. Or you've just, you know, you're on a boat and you've just gone down this huge river and all these things like, oh, there's a chest there, but I'm going way far past it. How do I double back? And it's a lot of getting you into an area, leading you on meandering little things, little corridors and alleyways, pathways, whatever, and just flipping them. And it gets a little old and a little frustrating. Now, I know everybody said that this is the game of the year. And I can, like I said, I'm having fun with the story. I'm having fun with the combat. It is easy to pick up, which is great. It is fun to upgrade everything. Is it the best game ever? Or the best, you know, if it's the best game of this year, that's a really sad indictment of games of the year, to the best games of 2022, to be honest with you. Because to see these games, I mean, and this, my problem with this is the same problem that you see with Nintendo getting Game of the Year with Zelda or Mario or whatever, where it's literally a slightly tweaked iteration of something that's come before that's slapped on the Switch. Or Sony getting it with God of War, or, you know, Fallout 4 being the same freaking game over and over. And it's not, I mean, it's maybe the best game in terms of polish.
That's what
but it's not.
Yeah,
it's not a, you know, it's not a huge free roaming game.
Right.
I mean, especially when you compare it to something like Horizon Forbidden West and Horizon Zero Dawn, which are much more expansive, where you can go almost anywhere and look just as good as God of War. I don't know if the engine's different, but there's some little things in there that piss me off. And this is just a standard thing. I call this actually Crystal Dynamics mode, where you come up against a gap in a wall, a little, you know, squeeze through, if you will. Can you go straight through it? No, you have to press a button. That to me is so, it takes you so out of it. Oh, you have to go under something, you have to press a button.
Right.
And when you're looking at these sort of games, and everybody will say, well, it's not that sort of action game. Well, what sort of action game is it? How come that we are in 2022, we're with the PS5, which is, you know, a hell of a powerful PC in a box, and we are not able to create levels where you can actually wander around, and you are still stuck of, oh, look, you want to get that little thing that's just literally the other side of this very low wall. Well, guess what? You can't hop over it because that would be unrealistic, apparently. And that I have a problem with. And it's cheap, lousy game design. And, you know, I say it's cheap and lousy. It depends on, obviously, how much resources they've got to spend on it with regards to game engine, etc., etc. But I would take a little hit in graphics to be able to take Kratos and his little son, who's a little wanker, by the way. Atreus is such a little bastard, and I don't know if he's got pictures of Kratos interfering with a goat or something, but I mean, he's got this giant lumbering ex-god of war under his thumb. He's the one who's taken them on this quest to find somebody who is going to become the new god of war, and Loki's referenced, and we have to get through the X, Y, and Z, and it's all very formulaic. A lot of people will say, "Oh, it's just so innovative and raw," and it's not. It looks pretty, but I mean, the puzzles become really annoying after a while. Oh, hang on, look, there's water, so the water has to get the thing spin around, but that water is not enough pressure, so I have to plug it up somewhere else, and I have to use my ice axe. Now, I don't know if that was in the last game, but it certainly makes it. It makes it. It's certainly in a lot of this game so far. The combat is fun, but it becomes repetitive. Yes, we have all these combos. I mean, look, I'm kind of old school. I miss the days of Arkham Asylum combat, where there was a real flow to it, as opposed to, button mashing. And look, maybe it's because I'm 51 years of age and I'm not where I used to be, dexterity wise. But it just doesn't seem to be. It's just not that. It's not like hugely innovative. It's not hugely fun anymore. It just feels like the same God of War that I saw somebody play a couple of years ago, and a couple of years before that, and a couple of years before that. The graphics have gotten prettier every single time. Really pretty, but where's the real innovation? I mean, it's the same with Far Cry that came out. Was it earlier this year? Far Cry 6 or 7, whatever the hell that was. Played it for a couple of hours, 2 hours actually. Then got a refund because I hated it. And there's just no real super originality. Mark Griffiths is in the house. You all right, boy?
Yes, himself.
Yeah. So it's. I know why people. I can see why people love it. I can appreciate it. I don't think it's the dog's bollocks by any stretch of the imagination. And I think, unfortunately, it's the huge success of it, the huge critical success of it, and obviously Nintendo games of the similar ilk that are just repetitious rehashes.
Right. But you mentioned the word polish before. And I think that one of the reasons that Nintendo games do so well with critics is because their level of polish is usually higher than most other game developers.
The reason Nintendo gets all the buzz that it's had for reissuing the same game over and over is pure fan wankery. We are talking about a generation who are given their big brothers Super NESs or N64s. People, for example, who still think that GoldenEye is a good first-person shooter. As somebody who has worked on more first-person shooters than people have had hot dinners, it's a mediocre first-person shooter. But, oh my God, it was so great on the N64. Oh, it was the N64? It was the N64, wasn't it?
Yes, it was N64.
Yeah, and you know what? It wasn't that good. Oh, but I can play in 4 different screens. And it's called a fucking LAN, pal. And you know what? Go off and play Doom in a LAN party. Then come back to me. And it's the same people who think Halo is a good first-person shooter. These are the people who take polish over content. And it really, really, really annoys me.
That's why he's the annoyed gamer, and you are not.
No, that's why I just get pissed off that there's people are continually getting all excited over Breath of the Wild or the new Mario game or games that games like God of War, where it's like, oh well, look, Mario, I've lost Princess Daisy again. What? Oh, not again, you clumsy bastard. Or Link, I've lost Zelda or something. What? Why'd you keep on losing them? Why do they keep on getting taken away? What is wrong with you? And look, oh, isn't this so beautiful and tranquil and this and that? And it's like, Jesus, they're just mediocre games with pretty packaging designed to attract people, especially grown-ups, who are nothing, who just basically want to live in this nostalgic fantasy. And they weren't even that good the first time. Oh my God, Breath of the Wild is the best. Zelda's the best RPG I've ever played. Are you fucking kidding me? Seriously? I mean, and this is an ongoing problem I have. So, anyway, did I like God of War? God of War is okay. It's okay. It's enjoyable. Not best game of the year by any stretch of the imagination. Not best game of any year, but it will probably sweep up with the Game Awards because that's how they roll.
So I have a question for you about the game. One of the things I liked, or probably my favorite thing about the first 3 God of War games, is that it did better storytelling than other action games at that time. Obviously, I haven't played a game in that series for like 12 years, 13 years or something. Does that hold up? Does it still have a good combination of mixing storytelling and action?
Yeah, I mean, as I suppose, I mean, I've got no real frame of reference, having not played the others in the thing, but it just seems like every other game that has it seems like very much like Horizon Zero Dawn or Forbidden West, or Spider-Man Miles Morales, or any of these other games that.
So maybe it doesn't hold up as well as it did at that time. Because
I guarantee you, I mean, it's got a better story than Call of Duty. It's got a better story than Fortnite. But yeah, I mean, isn't so many games just have these big stories, and they've heavily invested in them, and they're all much of a muchness nowadays. Nothing really jumps out. I mean, I think the only time I get to see something like what's that one that Obsidian did? Something Planet. You know the one I'm talking about. Came out on Xbox a couple of years ago, and then Xbox went and bought them. Sequel's coming out soon.
Right. I was just looking at Mark's perfect setup for our next or my next little segment, but I'll let you find that Obsidian game first.
Yeah. And I apologize for my brain. Oof.
Oh, I mean, between us, we should know
the Outer Worlds that came in 2019. That's the one. Yeah, my brain is just not where it used to be. The Outer Worlds is a fantastic game with a phenomenal story, incredible characters, a world that's pretty, feels livable and breathable.
And Mark did find it after he did, but
and these are the sort of games that they don't get the huge love that they should, because they're not. I mean, I would basically put the Outer Worlds up against anything Nintendo or Sony's put out in the last 20 years, and I would say, with regards to action adventures, blows them out of the park. Now, God of War is more combat. I accept that. People enjoy the slashy. But it tries, because it gives you this option to be more story than combat, it puts itself into that genre.
Right.
And it gives you an RPG element where you can upgrade your stats, you can upgrade your weapons. And anything, when you get into that RPG environment, then you're into the Fallout New Vegas Outer Worlds milieu that is so dominated by Obsidian, who are one of the best teams in the world when it comes to writing stories and executing this stuff, especially when they've got somebody behind them who is actually giving them a really good engine. So yeah, I just it's one of those things to me that just boggles my mind that these things never get the respect they deserve when they really are work of arts, because they're not coming from the trendy developer. So
that is fair.
Yeah. So basically, God of War is fine, but play Outer Worlds, it's better.
So Mark brought up a point. He said, Pokemon always bothers me. Game Freak have so much money at their disposal, but do the bare minimum every time because they know it will sell millions regardless. Aha, but not this time, Mark. For people who are not familiar, Game Freak is the developer of the main Pokemon games. They are on a pretty tight schedule where they have to release a new one every 3 years. And between making the game itself, designing the new Pokemon, they do have a lot of money, but they're also on a pretty tight schedule. But for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, they actually did try to do something different. It is the first fully open world Pokemon game in the mainline series. and it is technically not really good right now. There's so many graphical glitches. The floor disappears randomly. The camera just like pulls out and then zooms back in randomly. Trees and other large objects disappear in the middle of gameplay for no good reason.
Shady.
Yeah,
That's so shady.
it's technically the gameplay and stuff is still, if you love Pokemon, you will love what's going on in this game. But on a technical level, this is probably the worst Game Freak game that I've played possibly ever. Because I have certain expectations. I expect it to be a nice, solid little RPG. And this one has so many distracting graphical glitches that it's really distracting, and I kind of don't want to play it for a while until hopefully it can get patched up. I don't know if they can fix all these issues with patches, but I might give it a few weeks until.
And what's the fan reaction been? Have people been slating it? Or are people just putting the money up and they're I'm going to buy it anyway?
It's hard. I mean, critics have been panning the technical performance. Reddit, which I don't know how fair of a crowd that is, they've been slamming the graphical performance. But everyone loves the game mechanics, the new Pokemon. But from a technical level, yeah, it's bad. And Mark adds, they might have tried something different, but the textures are horrible, yes. And the bugs are horrendous, also yes. If The Witcher 3 can run on Switch, yeah, I mean, there is no excuse for it in my opinion. I mean, this is a first party release. And as we were talking about before, Nintendo has a reputation for having a certain level of polish. So if you're going to just keep releasing iterative games, I get this is the first fully open world Pokemon game, but some of these bugs are really inexcusable, like especially for Nintendo. I am shocked. So that is my one.
Everything is a cash grab with Nintendo. They're a toy company, they're not a games company. But I've been making this argument for years, and I've been accused of being a racist because I hate Nintendo. Apparently, even though the Super Nintendo was one of my first consoles, and I had so many games on that system, and I loved it to bits. Both that and obviously Sega Genesis. Right. But I just think that when you've played Pilot Wings for the first time on a console 30 years ago, and you've played Mario Kart for the first time on a console 30 years ago, and you're now seeing that. It's like you go to Thanksgiving at a friend's house and the kids are like, what are they playing? Oh, they're playing Mario Kart on the Switch. And you look at it and it's like, well, the graphics look obviously a lot better because they've gone from 16-bit to whatever now, but it's still fucking Mario Kart.
And for some people, that's what they want and that's what they enjoy. But yeah, I get it.
I know. I'm a snob.
Now,
Anywho.
Let's stick on the Nintendo tip. You recently went down a rabbit hole and were inspired to watch the old Mario Brothers movie.
It's a Mario.
So what inspired this?
So when I was at the theater watching Wakanda Forever, the Super Mario Brothers movie, the new one with Chris Pratt and Jack Black and everything, that came on, the trailer for that. And my wife looked at me and she just said, it looks pretty, but it sounds awful. Why the hell did they cast Chris Pratt as that voice? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back and I'm going to, I have, this is a DVD that I have buried away. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to rewatch this because I'm going to compare this Illumination, multi like 150, $200 million animated epic of Mario with this high quality voice cast, with this poxy little movie from 1993 that cost about $40 million to make, which in 1993 money was quite high. Had some very interesting special effects, had a very interesting story. I mean, if you read the backstory, the script went through 36 different revisions, so much so that Bob Hoskins was signed on with one script, and then he turned up for filming and was given a totally different script. And it's got John Leguizamo in it, who is, he's a great comedian, a great actor, who's also, been in Spawn and a bunch of other stuff. Samantha Mathis, who is one of the sort of it girls at the time, she's in this. There's Dennis Hopper as Cooper. Huh?
Well, Fisher Stevens was in it. I didn't realize.
Fisher Stevens is in it, and thankfully, unlike Short Circuit, he's not doing a very inappropriate Southeast Asian accent. Yeah, there's
Fiona Shaw. Wow,
Fiona Shaw is in it as well. As she's as Cooper's henchwoman / she pines for him. And the storyline is quite simple. It's quite simple. The dinosaurs were wiped out by meteorite that hit Brooklyn, and all those years ago, 100 million years ago, whatever it was. But instead of just wiping everybody out, it created a separate dimension, one of those parallel multiverse things, so they were on the multiverse tip way before anybody else. And so you have Dino Hatton, where people have evolved from lizards and dinosaurs. It's got the world's ugliest Yoshi, who looks like it will eat you, even though it's supposed to be cute. It's got some amazing things in it. The Goombas are actually really baller. I love the Goombas. They are so good in that movie. They're these huge, bulky, like 7-foot monster things that go, whoa, and with these small little dino heads that are kind of humanoid-ish. The town of Dino Hatton has run out of all its renewables because obviously there were no dinosaurs to make oil. Very clever. And it's all about Princess Daisy being taken over into our dimension, left at an orphanage by her mother, who then gets killed in a rock slide by Cooper. Her father, who is the Mushroom King, gets de-evolved into a mushroom fungus that spreads out all over through Dino City, because Cooper has these devolution guns, or de-evolution, if you will. And they basically, remember the old Super NES light guns? The big Super NES. They spray painted those silver. And those are the guns that the Goombas use. And the story is all over the place. But I will say, it's not as bad, perhaps, as some might say. It's got a certain cultish charm to it, and I said cult. Bob Hoskins, as ever, I mean, he followed up Roger Rabbit with this, and he tries manfully with what he's got to work with. It's he's very much channeling his Roger Rabbit character. He does as good a job as he can with the script. Like Leguizamo is great as Luigi, as best he can. There's some fun, they try and put some real world applications in there for the mushrooms and the bombs and the boots that allow you to jump.
Right.
It's got a really interesting soundtrack. Walk the Dinosaur by Was Not Was. Look that up, young children, because it was a quintessential 90s hit. Was Not Was, I think, had two hit songs, and one of them was Walk the Dinosaur.
Mark had a question. Does Dan, I believe he did the narration, right? I think you're right, Mark, for the movie. He was the narrator for that.
I don't even remember there was no narrator in the film.
Let's see.
I think it might have been an animated version.
No, it's listed in there's only one bit in the very beginning of the movie, and that is indeed him. A long, long time ago, the earth was ruled by dinosaurs. They were
okay. Well, I must have fallen asleep through that bit, but maybe I just can't remember it. Yes, I see it. Dan Castellaneta as the narrator. But yeah, it's as a time capsule of, oh my god, this is what happens when Hollywood gets their hands on video game movies. or video games in terms of movies, yes, it's a disaster. It was filmed in Wilmington, North Carolina, that hotbed of filming. So I mean, the physical sets they built were pretty damn cool. Dennis Hopper chews the scenery. I mean, he really does. He chews the scenery as Cooper. He is nothing like you'd imagine Cooper to be. The whole idea that they basically took this as a multiversal spin on humans evolving from dinosaurs.
Yeah,
is actually really quite cool.
I think that's cool.
Because they didn't have the special effects to go full Cooper with the shells and everything.
Right.
So they try to put this realistic spin on it. So you've got to give them props for that. But it's at the end of the day, it's still a pretty bad film. Mark Griffith says between Mario, Street Fighter, and Power Rangers film, Mario, the Street Fighter film is absolutely awful. I was actually working in a PR agency, and we were working on 3DO at the time, and we were invited to go and see that movie. With regards to trying to put a package together to get 3DO into various like movie premiere parties and all this sort of stuff, because they had an excellent version of Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. In fact, at the time, it was the best version, because this was just before the PlayStation launched. But then we watched the movie, and I was we were asked. My boss asked me what I thought of it, and I said it's fucking horrible. And then we had, despite having such a really good cast, with Raul Julia, Ming-Na,
final film.
Even little Kylie Minogue.
That's right.
And the muscles from Brussels. But yeah, they needed me to say something nice, so I said I loved how Bison was using the arcade control panel to power his machine.
Yeah,
because I had nothing else I could say that was actually any good.
Mark did the Mortal Kombat movie, and
hey,
I like that.
My first Mortal Kombat movie was baller, and it has the best soundtrack of all time.
Absolutely,
you've got to admit. I mean, Mortal Kombat. Yeah, that was pure. Like, where's my ecstasy, man? I will say, you brought up Power Rangers.
We lost the Green Ranger.
We lost the Green Ranger this week.
He wasn't that old, right?
He was 49.
Yeah, and he had
which is really sad. They still haven't announced or shared the details behind him passing, but the understanding is that he may have taken his own life, which is really sad because he seemed to be doing quite well for himself. He had 4 kids. Living in Texas, he's about to start making a film, and it's just really sad when anybody goes that young. But I remember not watching one episode of the Power Rangers, but then seeing the Power Rangers Secret of the Ooze come on like Sky TV in the mid to late 90s, and I really like that film. I really do. It is awful in every single way, but I really love that movie. I mean, the bad guy, Ivan Ooze, he chews up the scenery. Like you wouldn't believe. Ivan Ooze. And then they set it up for Rita Repulsa to join at the end of the next one, but which they never made a sequel to. And then, so yeah, he was Tommy, the Green Ranger, first of all, who became the White Ranger.
White Ranger, right.
Yeah. So yeah, I love that film. It's so bad it's good. Oh God, you know what? We're gonna have to do an episode now about 80s and 90s movies that are so bad they're good. We're gonna have to do this. People are gonna have to watch this and send in their choices and movies when they join us for the next one.
That's a great idea. But I wonder where you draw the line. Like, I don't know. Like The Last Dragon is not a good movie, but I find it wonderfully entertaining.
It's a wonderfully entertaining movie. Yeah. Show enough.
Yes.
Show enough.
It's not a good movie, but I'll watch it every day.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah, I mean, we, as a generation, all right, Mark Griffiths is going to give us a list, and we are going to go through them. There you go. This is another episode for us.
Yes.
But we, as a generation, and I say we, I'm obviously a little bit older than you, Ray. Even though I don't look it. But I think I was lucky. I was born at the very beginning of the 70s. So I grew up, 1 to 10, 0 to 10, the 70s. So, it's like I had Star Wars.
Mm.
I had Close Encounters. I was terrified by Jaws. We had Grease. We had all these like seminal movies experiences that were the start of the blockbuster genre. And then the 80s was obviously, not only was it the home console boom, an arcade boom, but it was the rise of the VCR. So we were starting to see all these movies at home, and it gave birth to canon films in particular, and Enter the Ninja, Delta Force, Death Wish.
Are they American Ninja too? Is that those guys?
American Ninja 2, Enter the Ninja 3 Domination with Lucinda Dickey, who was also in Breaking and Breaking 2.
And they
Electric Boogaloo.
Did they do all those Cynthia Rothrock movies? What was
the Cynthia Rothrock? Yeah, she was in there. That was like late 80s, early 90s. But this whole direct to video thing was just so huge, and I remember whole summers where I'd go and hang out at my friend's house, and we're literally on the way. I'd go to the video store. I'd pick up a video for us, and we just sit at home and we'd watch all this, all these cheesy straight to video movies. Whether they were, obviously teenage boys, they may have had some nudity in them, but they were kung fu movies, they were ninja movies, they were sci-fi movies. There was Ghoulies. There was obviously ones like Explorers. Was it the Stuff? All these amazing movies that we had that just reveled in their craziness. Reanimator, Bride of Reanimator. Right. And they all had practical effects because this was pre-CGI, which made it even better because some of this stuff was so bad. And then, you go into the 90s and then it's become straight to DVD or whatever. And now you've got these movies that are dropping on Netflix, etc., etc. Right. But they just don't have that charm. They really don't have that charm of the movies from back in the day where you literally had to work for it. You had to go to the video store and you have to rewind the tapes and take them back. And the picture was, sometimes not great because the video had been watched too many times. And, young people today don't know they're born. I think Beverly Hills Ninja was a late 90s one. That was Chris Farley, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's, that's where, movies like Mario came in as well. They had a lot of practical effects on top of everything else. I'm a big fan of practical effects. I really think we're missing a trick with a lot of the Marvel stuff nowadays and the DC stuff because it's more and more CGI, it's more and more green screen, and it looks fantastic, but it looks like the God of War. There's this world that you can't really penetrate, you can't go beyond. Right. There's no physicality to it, and I love seeing that physicality in the movie. That's why I love the original Star Wars. Right. And anytime that somebody goes back to, I'm going to a set, and we're going to have actual props, and we're going to, we're going to try and keep green screen to a minimum. That to me is just so much more refreshing.
Mark says, I miss that random last-minute blockbuster rental when they didn't have to film. Yes.
It's 5 to 10 in the night. You are like, I am not ready to go to sleep yet. I need a bloody movie for the weekend. What am I going to pick up? What's left? And you're scouring every single shelf. And so it's like sometimes you get 2 or 3, and you've basically just taken a punt on them. You spent like £6 on 3 movies because they were £2 a pop, and you just take them home and you hope that they're going to last you the weekend and they're going to be good.
Speaking of the video store, this week is Thanksgiving in America, which used to be my favorite time to rent video games as a kid because the local video store, it wasn't a chain or anything. They rented games, but since they were closed on Thanksgiving, that day was free. So I got a free day of rental. over Thanksgiving to play a game. So
we'd have little indies that would do that as well. I mean, obviously not for Thanksgiving because obviously it's a made up holiday.
Yes, well,
it's not a proper holiday. It's a cock block on Christmas. Yeah. We've had this discussion before. Look, no, I love Thanksgiving. I love turkey. I will eat turkey very happily. Thank you very much. And I like the Thanksgiving Day parade, and I like having the breakfast my wife makes me, and we have a great time. But yes, I remember renting. Not only that, renting that you could rent the systems. Do you remember when you could rent a Sega Genesis or a Game Boy? I mean, it's like you'd have to put a credit card number down, and the deposit was like $50 or 50 quid in the UK. And it's like, oh, I've got this for a week, and it's like 10 pounds to rent, but £50 deposit. I'm like, oh, I'm going to play this. That was really cool too. But nowadays, kids, all they do now is they get a TV given to them with all the with the Xbox Game Bar installed on it, and that's it. You don't even need a freaking console anymore.
This is true.
It's on the cloud. I mean, it's a very different world. One of the worst games. We talked about these movies, with regards to them being absolutely awful movies we'd watch over and over. And as we're coming up upon Christmas, I will talk about one of the worst Game Boy games ever that I loved playing. And that was Home Alone.
Huh.
That game was absolute rank awfulness. It was released, I think, by LJN. I got it. I rented it on the Game Boy, and I rented it from this place, and I never gave it back.
Oops.
And yeah, so I ended up with this copy of Home Alone. I just played it over and over, and I started to beat it. And it's a platformer, and it's pretty awful, as you can imagine. I mean, you have to find the toys, and you go around the rooms, and things are flying at you, spiders and birds, and every now and again you get into a final boss level with the furnace that raises and spits fireballs at you, and you have to shoot spitballs back at it. But it was just, I mean, I probably spent days playing that game just because it was either that or Tetris or Super Mario Land, because those are the only three that I had. And I love that game. It's fucking infuriating as hell. But yes, those were the days, eh?
So we are almost out of time, but I wanted to talk about World Cup while we still have a few minutes. United States and Wales played each other today, ended up in a 1-1 draw. Were you happy with your team?
Not in the first half. We were atrocious. The US played us off the park, and that's because I think we got it wrong with our selection. We should have had Kiefer Moore up front, who came on at halftime, the big Bournemouth lump of a number 9, who basically ended up beating the crap out of the US centre-backs for the entire second half. I mean, literally from the first minute he was on the pitch, we were a different team. I don't know if there was a plan to let the US sort of run themselves out of steam, but we went a goal down. Perfectly executed goal, really great run and pass from Pulisic, great finish. The US couldn't kill us off at halftime or by halftime, and then we came back, and honestly, we could have had 3 in that second half. There was an amazing save from Ben Davis, a couple of near misses, and before Gareth Bale wins and converts the penalty. So the draw was a fair result. Wales, honestly, are a much better team than that showed. The US are a good team. They're a young team. They're a tactically naive team, I think. They didn't have the wherewithal to see the game out. And I think that's what you have when you have a much younger team with a young captain who's captain for the first time in Tyler Adams. You don't give a player the captaincy in the first World Cup game. I mean, you need somebody with a bit of experience, and that's my opinion. Now we were on to Iran on Friday, while you guys have England, and then we have England next Tuesday. So it's all up in the air. I think it's going to come down to whoever puts most goals past Iran and doesn't concede the most goals against England, because they scored. They won today 6-2.
Yeah, I mean, US had a good first half, as you mentioned, and we looked gassed in the second half. I think in the first half we had something like 70% of possession, and by the end of the match it was pretty close to even. So I think maybe it was running us tired, running us
Well,
ragged.
both teams were tired. I mean, and Mark just actually says that makes the point there that with regards to the added time, the fact that it was 10 minutes added time in the first half, 10 minutes added time in the second half with an additional 2. I mean, by the end of the group stage, if you have this issue all the time, you're going to play an extra freaking game inside 4 days.
Yeah.
So no wonder the players are knackered. So I don't know where they're pulling a lot of this extra time shit from. The refereeing standard has been atrocious. I'm sorry, you don't put a referee from Qatar in to, which is no offense, a third world footballing country. They may have all this money, they may have all these stadiums, but their team's shit, their referees are shit, along with lots of other things that are shit. The people themselves might be great, but there's some issues there. And so, you do not give. They've got to stop giving the World Cup to the likes of, we had problems with Russia 4 years ago. Now we have this one with Qatar. I mean, if in 4 years they only use US referees, we fucked. Because some great stadiums here, but you don't let the locals referee. I mean, really, it's like shiny, shiny, great, great. Yes, we'll take your sponsorship money. We are not letting you referee.
Qatar lost to an Irish league side. Says it all, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Can you imagine? And obviously, Netherlands beat Senegal today. Senegal with no Sadio Mane.
Yeah, that was crazy.
But it'll be interesting to see what the Netherlands do to Qatar. And Senegal, I think 2-0, the 2-0 defeat yesterday is going to be a high point for them.
Yeah.
They are going to get beaten like an egg, and deservedly so. They don't deserve the World Cup. Sorry.
And with that, we are going to wrap it up today. Thank you so much for joining us. Mark, thank you for your excellent comments as always. And thank you to everyone that's watching the replay. Please subscribe and like. There's our social media up there. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And the next 3 episodes will be lots of fun. Marcus and I will be talking about our personal best and worst movies, TV shows, and video games. Probably not in that order.
Some of them are going to be very short lists.
Yes.
I mean, really, they are going to be fucking short lists. It's not been a banner year for video games, in my opinion. Movies, we've had a few, but nothing, because we're still coming out of the post-pandemic streaming thing where people are getting back into the cinema slowly. So TV shows should be the strong one, thankfully, for the likes of Netflix and Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to seeing what you liked and didn't like. And guys, send us comments about the movies, TV
girls too,
what you liked and did not like. And we will see you next time at the beer pad. Thanks for watching.